Hello, my name is Cathy Chang, co-author of Become a Leader in Data Science, many publications. I built and led teams at Silicon Valley Data Science, where my teams and I parachuted into companies to address challenging and meaningful data needs. I have worked with leaders of centralized and distributed data teams at large and small companies, all betting the next product differentiation on data. Whether it's addressing data architecture inadequacies at large asset management firm or preparing a Fortune 50 global consumer packaged goods company for its biggest shopping day of the year, I see a distinct need for data science leaders as companies become data centric. I will be moderating today's session. In this inaugural session of Ask Dr. Chong, a series where Dr. Jike Chong takes audience questions on situations and challenges encountered when taking on leadership roles in data science. Dr. Chong has personally mentored and promoted many data science leaders in the US and in China, in public and private companies. As an executive, he's built and grown multiple high-performing data science teams. Dr. Chong was part of the executive team that took Eden Digital Limited public on New York Stock Exchange. He also expanded and led the data team as a chief data scientist at Acorns, designed and executed a project predicting venture investment risks at Silver Lake. Recently, Dr. Chong led the hiring marketplace data science team at LinkedIn, serving a business line with $4 billion a year in revenue. Dr. Chong, why don't you share the reasons behind authoring this book?
Thank you, Cathy. Well, this is an exciting time for data scientists because the industry leading data driven innovations are actually currently within reach for many nimbly sized organizations. What we see is that 95% of the companies with data science teams have teams of fewer than 10 members. And many data science leaders are eager to make great impact and take on more responsibilities and develop themselves into executive leaders. But the directions and milestones are not so clear. So some large companies like Google and LinkedIn has leadership programs that address those challenges internally and for some specific stage of the career development of data science leaders. But what about the rest of us? This is the main reason for writing this book. And this book intends to help you understand your existing strengths and to assess your developmental opportunities for the next stage of your career. It can also give you a window into the concerns of your managers and your managers' managers, so you can better understand where they might be coming from. So currently, this book is in the Manning's Early Access program, and some early chapters are already available, with more chapters coming online every month.
So in chapter 1 of the book, we include a series of case studies highlighting common challenges we have observed in our experience, in our collective experience. The case studies span from early career data scientists who recently entered this exciting field to mid-stage folks who are beginning to lead teams to mature leaders who head up functions and hold executive roles. Let's take a closer look at one of them.
Yeah, let's look at the data science manager case, shall we?
Sure. So as a graduate, we're going to talk about Paul. As a graduate of a highly selective data science fellowship program, Paul was recruited by and spent 3 years at a global internet company focused on revenue and retention optimization for a mature product line. He considers himself very fortunate to have worked for an exceptional manager who he looked up to and aspired to be one himself one day. 6 months ago, Paul's opportunity came. One of his classmates from graduate school days, Sam, who heads up operations research at a late-stage biotech startup, recruited Paul to manage the data science team. Paul really welcomed opportunity and was confident that his experience and learning from a much larger group and the company had prepared him well for this role. So technically strong, Paul also invests significant effort in building relationships with the data science team. In addition to project-related meetings, Paul sets up weekly walks, now online walks, with each of the 7 team members. He holds weekly office hours to make sure he's available for the team, especially when the challenges arise, and hosts breakfast with data science in an effort to communicate frequently with project stakeholders and business partners to listen to their needs and keep them informed. So 6 months in, Paul feels drained. Yet business results are only mixed at best. Out of the 5 main projects his team is on, 2 are chugging along, 2 are delayed, and 1 has changed scopes entirely. There are also a few pet projects that haven't even taken off. It seems like Paul's efforts have really not paid off as much as he had anticipated. Is he doing the right things? Or is this a case of facing reality after passing the initial honeymoon phase? How can Paul develop into a good manager?
Yes, so this is a pretty representative case. I think I've mentored many Pauls in the various roles I've taken, and you may recognize a Paul near you. So Paul feels trained after 6 months on the job, and his effort has only led to a mixed result. Now, as a manager in a new company, Paul knew that what he needs to do to get accepted in a new environment. So he was very good at relationship building, for example. He took on requests from teams and business partners. But the challenge looks to be that he became overwhelmed about all the requests he took up. And what's showing up for the team and the business partners is that Paul took on too many projects, and it shows up as having little leadership on where to focus. So in this book, we lay out the path for data scientists to reach for the next stage of their career. And this path includes understanding the expectations and assessing opportunities that leads to the next role. So what could be a really helpful process for Paul in this case? Well, first we want to build confidence. So we want to recognize the leadership strength that Paul already has. And then we want to highlight his personal path or the opportunities for new practices that he can adopt. And in order for Paul to be successful, it's not just for him, it's also leveraging the organization that's around him. And also having a clear roadmap for him to be able to adopt many of the new practices and incorporate it in his daily work. So, how do you get the most from checking out a case like this? Well, first, what you can potentially do is to see how you can measure up to Paul's strengths and see if you have similar opportunities for new practices or if you have alternative solutions that could even work even better in your case. And see if you have similar kind of support in your organization for people who reports to you and for people who you reports to. And then you can also start lining up your own roadmap to see if you can incorporate some of these new practices. So with this, shall we look at Paul's strength first?
Yeah, let's look at Paul's strength first.
So for Paul's strengths, we noted that he's got a PhD in statistics, so there is some pretty rigorous training in the scientific methods. And he also went through a data science fellowship, which provides him with a pretty good breadth of data science knowledge. Now, what we can see is that he can have the capability to frame the problem to maximize business impact, discover patterns in data, right? And also he could be effective in project execution. So we'll share some of his strengths in striking balances between trade-offs And also, his 3 year at a global internet company has provided him valuable work experience, where he has experienced the drive for consistency across models and projects. So let's go through those carefully one by one. Now, for Paul's strength in asking the questions, the right questions in framing the problem, is analysis limited to historical data, or are there real-time streaming data sources that must be considered? Now, these are all the kind of questions that should be asked when framing a problem. Now, with the answers he has, for example, whether the problem is a diagnostic only problem or the results should be predictive of the future, you can create these four quadrants in using these dimensions to be able to look at what is the specific opportunity calls for. So, for example, let's take a case with a set of email and marketing campaigns that's targeted to invoke long-term engagement. Well, a typical approach could be running an A/B test with a set of holdout set, and where the holdout group of users don't see the email campaign, and you can run this test for a few months and then assess whether the lack of marketing campaigns impact long-term engagement. But this is a kind of hindsight with a long experimentation cycle that's not really efficient in generating improvements in operations. What kind of insight can we provide? Well, with a real-time dashboard illustrating the trends in long-term engagement, we can follow the decays in long-term engagement across multiple user vintages to detect early trends of success and failures. And these trends can allow organizations to make business decisions in real time from the dashboard. But is that enough? What we want is also to have foresight. Now, given historical data, we can build up a model that predicts long-term engagement using short-term engagement characteristics like open rates, click-through rates, unsubscribe rates, landing page session length, etc. And a predictive model can anticipate long-term effect with short-term observations. So we can gain the foresight to adjust our email campaigns week to week. What more can we do? Well, we can leverage intelligence capabilities, right? We can include real-time analytics on channels such as email to learn about our customer segments. And then we can prepare sequences of touches on the next best action to drive long-term engagement for specific segments of users. And when we can adopt and adapt the content of the next touches based on the individual responses in real time, we now begin to see the intelligence in driving long-term engagement. So you can see by framing the problem with different levels of data science capabilities, and we can take the business impact from just analyzing an A/B test readout to automated dashboards, to agile operations, to leading the long-term engagement initiative with intelligence features in the user experience. So Paul can do all this, and this is a quite important strength for a data science leader. And you can find more in-depth discussions of these topics in the book in section 2.1.1, and we'll highlight that at the top right corner of the slide as we go through these descriptions of Paul's strengths and opportunities. So with the strength in technical capabilities, Paul can also discover the patterns in data, and that includes understanding data characteristics like the unit of decisioning, sample size, data sparsity, outliers, etc., or looking at the innovations in feature engineering, like with simple statistics, complex statistics, clustering analysis, graph analysis, and clarifying modeling strategies like the momentum-based strategies, foundational strategies, reflexive strategies, as well as hybrid strategies. So you can find out a bit more about these in section 2.1.2 in the book. Now, Paul's strengths is not only his technical capabilities. He also has some strong execution capabilities. And these strong execution capabilities comes from the capability of making trade-offs to make balanced trade-offs between speed and quality, between safety and accountability, documentation and progress. Now, what do we mean by those? Well, what we mean is that for speed and quality, as a manager of project, Paul must understand when to practice the art of craftsmanship and when to quickly empower a business partner to make a timely business decision. So, for example, when the business decision is at the go or no-go granularity, Paul can guide the team towards speed. If the business problem is making incremental improvements that can result in significant business impact, then Paul can guide the team to emphasize quality. Well, what we mean by balancing safety and accountability? Well, problems occur. Site can go down, and models can fail. So regardless of how carefully we planned and executed our data science projects, they're still prone to failures from unknown risks. And these unknown risks are coming from new teams, new processes, new platforms. And to fail is human. What's important is how we learn from that process and how we don't make the same mistakes again. Now, this learning process in different organizations can be called postmortems, learning reviews, after action reviews, or incident reviews. But the important piece is to figure out how to go through these processes without assigning blames. Now, what does that mean? Well, to learn from our past, we need first an accurate account of what happened, what effect was observed, what's expected, and what were the assumptions made. Now, suppose the data scientist or the business partner believed that they would be punished from this process. They may not open up to share the true nature of the mechanisms, the pathologies, and the operations of the failures, so that the team cannot truly learn from those failures. Now, what about balancing documentation and progress? Documentation is a hard topic, right? Because it's often seen as competing with making new progress on additional projects. So if you have grown a team, without sufficient documentation, onboarding new team members can be highly inefficient. And you may have observed new team members and existing team members getting stuck over similar challenges for days, while best practices already exist in the team. Now, good documentation doesn't have to be long and nuanced, but it does have to satisfy the following three conditions. So it needs to be reproducible, transferable, and discoverable. And we discuss more of those requirements in section 2.2.3 in the book. So other than the project management, the project execution capabilities, there is also the project management capabilities. And you may have seen this scenario play out in teams you're involved in, right? When you investigate the cause of these challenges, the challenges can be the data science team has been successful in working through some proof of concept project and have quick wins, but gradually the progress slows to a crawl. Now, what often happens is that you've encountered issues in creating tech debts. Now, there are common methodologies to be able to mitigate this process, including providing a common A/B test framework, a common dashboarding and reporting infrastructure, and common data enrichment infrastructure, as well as common metrics to be able to allow the team to get back on track. And these we discuss in section 4.1.2. So these are Paul's strengths. Now, where are Paul's opportunities for new practice? Should we discuss that?
Yes. So, what we when we talked about this, this book is part of the Manning's Early Access program. So some chapters available, some chapters coming online, and as you can see, this different strength areas fall into different chapters and different sections. So we'll give you a guide as to how to use this in both in Paul's journey as well as in your journey, which may be similar or very different from Paul's journey that's taking place right now. So let's get into the opportunities for new practices.
Yes. So in terms of the new opportunities, right, we talk about the opportunities for Paul to have rigor in planning and prioritization. We'll focus on that, and we'll also touch on how other skills can help him in the prioritization process, for example, by broadening his knowledge to multiple domains and being able to manage up to his manager. So first, let's look at the opportunities in terms of rigorous planning and optimization. Now, first, in terms of interpreting the business needs, it can be pretty challenging for new data science leaders. Many of your partners are not yet familiar with all the capabilities data science can bring, and they may provide requests that at best may be a suboptimal framing of the problem. So effective data science managers can learn to ask questions behind the questions, to take personal responsibility and accountability for setting up the data science project for success.
There's actually John Miller who talked about questions behind the question. So the question behind the question is really there's a bit of work on practicing personal accountability at work and in life. So we have that, we reference that, and you can certainly look into that for more information on that.
Yes. So in this particular case, we give an example for Paul's benefit, right? When a marketing partner is looking to do a personalized email campaign, how can Paul take personal accountability? So can he ask for what are we looking for to drive long-term user engagement? What are types of user engagement that are more valuable for improving enterprise value? And what are the kind of return on investment that the marketing partner is expecting? For example, there are various funnel stages for user acquisition, activation, retention, right? And depending on the goal of the campaign, driving long-term retention at each stage can reach different goals. So Paul can share these trade-offs with the partner team to clarify the goal for the expectation for the initiative. So just some of the variations to discuss, for example, as we can see here, the pyramid. You have the active users, small group of users we know a lot about, passive users who are on the platform but not engaging as frequently, and also inactive users who have an account on a platform but may not be interacting with the platform, and also the prospective users who may know about the platform but are not yet on the platform. Now, given those capabilities to ask the question behind the question, how should Paul prioritize his data science project and provide focus for his team? Well, there are three levels of diligence for data science project prioritization that Paul can reference. And they're at the innovation versus impact level, the priority refinement with RICE, and we'll go into what that is, as well as prioritization with alignment to data strategies.
You can keep track of the acronyms we put in here. So there was an MBA earlier, and there's RICE, and there's a lot more coming. And we try to keep it simple so that it's really a way to help you memorize it, and remember it, so you can actually use it when the time's right.
Yes. So first, we want to introduce this level of prioritization at the innovation and impact level. So this is actually a solution methodology that's proposed by Jacqueline Knowles. She's also an author, a Manning author, author of the book Building a Career in Data Science. In one of her blog, Prioritizing Data Science Work, she put together this matrix that has innovation on the vertical axis, as well as impact on the horizontal axis. And of course, for those projects that's highly innovative and highly impactful, those are the ones of what we all wish we were doing. And then there are those with good impact, but less innovative. Those are the providing proof kind of project. And then there are the highly innovative, but projects that don't have a path to business impact. They're often called the ivory tower ideas. And then there's also the routine or reporting projects at the lower bottom level, the lower left quadrant. So in summary, we would be focusing on the projects with more business impact and avoiding the projects with less business impact. So for early data science teams, this can potentially be good enough for one level of of prioritization. But for more mature data science teams, what else can we do? Well, there is RICE of what as a process we can look at to prioritize our data science project. It involves reach, impact, confidence, and effort. So in reach, there are often trade-offs on how specific a population a data science project can reach. Right? The population we have the most information on is often small. The large population may be the hardest to engage. For impact, well, the overall business impact is the anticipated lift to key operating metrics for the reachable population. For small populations, you may have a greater impact. For a larger population, you may have a smaller lift to key operation metrics. So we have to figure out what is the product of the reach and impact for the ultimate impact to the business. And then there is also the confidence. So for a data science project to succeed, there's a number of operational risks to consider. And we need to assess a lot of nuances, like what data is available, of what's available, what is reliable, of what's reliable, what is statistically significant, of what's statistically significant, what's predictable, and of what's predictable, what's implementable, and of those are the implementable, what's ROI positive, and of those are ROI positive, is there a business partner ready to operationalize it to create business value, right? So a lot of items to consider in confidence of the project. And then there is the effort to ensure the success of a data science project. And it can take significantly more time than the time to just build the model. And the execution process often involves multiple phases of efforts with specific goals to achieve in each phase, such as like data, the data proof of concept, yes, the product proof of concept, the phases of iterative improvement, etc. And those are important to estimate in order to figure out how to prioritize a particular project. So that's just the planning and prioritization piece. Now, among the reach, impact, confidence, and effort, one piece that's really hard to estimate is the impact piece. So we'll talk about that a little bit in a little bit. So also for the rigor in planning, sometimes a project has the effort is too great to take on for the impact it makes, but it's strategically important. So what we can do is to also look at how well it would align to the data strategy we have. So in here, when each project may be too large and fail during prioritization, what you can do is to see if some of the fundamental infrastructures can be built as a foundational infrastructure for multiple projects. So in other words, to amortize some of the project cost over multiple projects in the roadmap so that you have smaller effort accounted for and to be able to prioritize that project from a strategic perspective. So those are the rigor in planning and prioritization. Now, what can we do, coming back to the impact piece, to be able to specify what kind of impact you can provide for the business? Well, Paul can look to broaden his knowledge, his domain knowledge. Well, we mentioned earlier, Paul came from the internet business background and is going into biotech. So it's important to learn a lot of specific key performance indicators in the biotech space to be able to speak the partner's language and to be able to specify what kind of impact and to understand the kind of impact that can be used, the metrics that can be used to prioritize his projects.
There are a lot of opportunities, so let's get the highlights and make sure that we give Paul some advice as well.
Yes. So in terms of managing up to Paul's manager, now managing up to your manager, that has many components. You can align on priorities, report on progress, and escalate issues. But in this particular case, in order to figure out how best to prioritize, we're really aligning on initiatives, aligning on priorities. And in this case, we're specifically seeking the manager's feedback on the portfolio of projects and which projects should be prioritized and which should not be, and also validating some of the assumptions made in Paul's prioritization process. So in the future, he can have similar kind of assumptions or take more reasonable assumptions into account so that the thought process can be aligned between Paul and his manager. So these are the opportunities Paul has for his new practices.
Yeah, that's again, we spent a lot of time talking about recognizing Paul's leadership strengths, and we also talked about the opportunities that that are for new practices for Paul. And at this time, let's dive into the third piece, which is the leveraging the organization. So let's go.
Yes. So for leveraging the organization, right? Paul is an individual. There's only so many things he can do alone. But the good thing is he's a manager, right? For a manager, he's managing a team. So in this case, he has authority over his direct reports, so he can make certain requests for his direct reports. But more importantly, is about coaching his direct reports so that they can coordinate and collaborate with him in these prioritization processes. Now, in this process, there's three main parts. There's getting clarity on the goals, there's focusing on velocity, and communicating the impact. So for clarity on the goals, well, each well-defined data science project should serve a particular business purpose. And while there are multiple ways to achieve the business purpose, Paul's team members can evaluate if the data science project's plan, the project plan's solution is the simplest possible solution to achieve the business purpose so that their efforts can be minimized and the impact can be maximized. There's also the process of focusing on velocity. What this means is to be able to succeed quickly by failing fast. Now, that may sound a little contradictory, but data science projects velocity comes from two aspects: the speed to initial solution and low friction to incremental improvements. For the speed to initial solution, this requires us to focus on the 20% of the work that allows us to get 80% of the confidence that the organization is moving in the right direction.
Pareto's.
The Pareto's, exactly. And the low friction to incremental improvement requires strategic choices to be made in a timely fashion. And we also need to reduce the tech debts such that there's a firm foundation for the architecture so that we can iteratively improve the innovative solutions. For the proof of concept specifically, we want to make sure that we're not just pursuing the simplest and quickest version of a project, but really to first understand which are the highest risk pieces and to make sure that we hit the highest risk components first to evaluate whether the project is a viable project. And this is a typical process like Eric Rice speaks about in the Lean Startup. And then there is for the tech debts, well, a nimble proof of concept to remove project risk and to quickly iterate on the features. A company can naturally take on tech debts. But not all tech debts are bad, as it often allows for nimble experimentation and removal of product or process risks. But all tech debts needs to be serviced. And when they're not serviced, they can slow down the velocity of producing new capabilities. And finally, we can talk about the communication of the impacts. So this is really coaching direct reports to rigorously approach not just the technical aspect of projects, but also the communication piece so that they have the responsibilities to interpret company initiatives, recommend project plans, and communicate the impact of the data science work to the project team, to the manager, Paul, to the business partners, as well as to other tech leads across teams. So these are the things that Paul can do for the to coordinate with the direct reports. There's also the coordination with the managers. So for manager, for his manager, which is an executive in data science, she's responsible for defining a roadmap or a strategic plan for the organization. Now, the synchronization power of a roadmap is very significant as it allows the alignment of efforts across multiple teams and functions to collaborate and coordinate together. So data science touched many technical and business areas that are numerous that have numerous roadmaps. And here we show 8 common types of roadmaps that your organization or Paul's organization may already have developed. And Paul can save time by finding out about them from his manager and see how he can align his priorities to these roadmaps in the short term and potentially improve these roadmaps over the long term. Roadmap is just one area. So one final piece is really to coordinate with his manager to identify sponsors and champions for promising projects. Now, a lot of projects fail not because of their algorithm merit, but because of the lack of trust in coordinating communication between business functions. So a sponsor is really important here. A sponsor is responsible for articulating a project's problem statement, defining the team's objectives, and validating the business case in the project charter. A project sponsor is often the senior business leader with an important business objective and the authority, this is important, the authority to muster subject matter experts, headcounts, data, equipment, and funding towards a solution. She may not be aware of all the technical details, but will be responsible to evaluate if the business objective is achieved by the end of this project. A project should also have a champion. So a champion is a mid to senior level executive who is intimately familiar with the project's technical and business merit, and also has a business beneficiary for a successful project outcome. And when the collaborating project partner team looks to adjust priorities and considering dropping this project, it's the project champion's role to emerge and be a strong advocate to negotiate with the project partner to reprioritize the project to the top. And when the project encounters stressful situations, the champion should also be there to encourage and inspire the team to keep moving forward. So Paul can work with his manager to identify the project sponsor and champion for his project so that he can have a clearer prioritization and focus for his team. Now, are you clear about your project's champion and sponsor?
So Jike just, Dr. Chong just diagnosed the issues based on the symptoms that Paul is experiencing. And he highlighted areas of action for Paul. Now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the suggested roadmap for next steps. So think of it as therapy, if that helps. So throughout the process of recognizing Paul's strengths and identifying opportunities, Paul becomes more ready to acknowledge his own finiteness as an individual human being to discover limitations relative to strength in gaining clarity to his path forward. We recommend two processes for next steps. With the leadership strength and potential development areas identified, Paul can experiment with a simple choose, practice, and review process with a 2-week check-in period. And that's the CPR process. He can also coach himself with this model called grow. So let's look at each of these. So this choose is select 1 to 2 items from the matrix to work on. As an example, you may choose to identify the sponsors and champions of your project like Dr. Chong just talked about in terms of managing up. In terms of practice, for each project you are involved in, practice the skill you have chosen to work on. If you have chosen to better understand the company vision and mission, you may want to review them on your company's website, clarify the technical direction of your projects, and find examples where the projects align well or do not align well with the vision and mission. We gave some examples in the book, and you can take a look at that, when things don't align, there are problems. Review. Setting up a meeting with yourself in 2 weeks' time, and it's usually considered as a sprint to check in and to come back to the section of the book. You can assess if you have now gained a better understanding or command of the skill, or you can choose to take another sprint to further develop the skill or move on to the next CPR cycle. For your self-review, you can use a project-based skill improvement template to help you structure your actions over the 2-week sprints. There's skill task side piece where you select a skill or task you have chosen to work on. We gave an example here in the box, and you choose a date in the 2-week period when you can apply the skill, and write down the names of people who you're going to apply the skill with, or if it's with yourself, put down yourself. And also the 4th piece is place. select the location or occasion that you can apply the skill. So for example, it could be one-on-one with manager. It could be it could be in the team huddle. Now everything's virtual, so virtual team huddle on next steps for project Y. So, and finally, review results. How did you do compared to before? We understand everybody's super busy. You are consumed with the day-to-day, but take a little bit of time and invest in yourself so that you can just get that much better each week, each 2 weeks, and then you'll see additional impact over time. So did you do same, better, or worse? So by holding yourself accountable for these steps in a self-review, you can start to exercise your strength and shed light on any blind spots in your tech lead capabilities. And now grow. If you decide to focus on the goal, as an example, of improving rigor by better taking responsibility for driving enterprise value within a timeline of 3 months, okay? Your specific goal could be that your team can address the top business initiatives that your business partners care about with more velocity and less constrained by tech debts. Next, let's check in on reality. What actions have you taken so far? Have you examined the business purposes for your data science projects? This is talked about in section 3.2.3. What is a metric you're moving to produce enterprise value? And what might be getting in the way? As you examine the obstacles and options, some questions to answer may be that, have you looked into the tech debts that need to be paid to gain velocity, to move the metrics, to produce the enterprise value for the top business initiative? That's mouthful. And what about the different options? Do any new ones emerge after reading the section 3.2.3? What are the pros and cons of each option? Okay, so now let's take a look at how all this aligns with our book. I know this is an eye chart, and it's not meant to be read here word for word, but at a high level, we organize the book in 4 main parts or stages. Paul's role, as you can see, is at the team manager stage. In each stage, there are 2 main parts. There's the hard skills or capabilities, and there's the soft skills that are soft social skills we call virtues. Capabilities are further discussed in 3 pieces: technology, execution, and expert knowledge. Technology, we define it slightly differently for each stage, but here's a definition that would make sense for Paul, as he's a new manager fresh out of the tech lead part of the stage. So for technology, it's the tools and frameworks for you to lead more effectively that are used in framing the problem, understanding the data characteristics, innovating in feature engineering, driving clarity in modeling strategies, and setting expectations for success. Execution, the practices for you to specify projects from vague requirements, prioritize and plan projects while balancing difficult or effectively complex trade-offs. Expert knowledge, the domain knowledge, we can talk about that interchangeably. That's for you to clarify project alignment to organizational vision and mission, account for data source nuances, and navigate structural challenges in the organization. We discussed this in detail with examples in chapters, in multiple chapters for each of the stages. As for virtues, they are further discussed in ERA, ethics, rigor, and attitude. Ethics is standards of conduct at work that enables you to avoid unnecessary and self-inflicted breakdowns. There are many aspects of work ethics for data scientists, including data use, project execution, and teamwork. Rigor, the craftsmanship that generate trust in the results data scientists produce. Rigorous results are repeatable, testable, and discoverable. and rigorous work products can become solid foundations for creating enterprise value. Attitude, the moods with which you approach workplace situations, with positivity and tenacity to work through failures. Data scientists should be curious and collaborative to team members, team players. We should also respect the diverse perspectives in lateral collaborations. So you may be collaborating with marketing, maybe collaborating with project management, product management, and more. Now let's orient this. Let's do a little bit of orientation for Paul in the CV matrix, the capability and virtues matrix. So recognizing that he's got leadership strength, and there's a number of leadership strength that you can find in the team lead sections of C and V, and there's opportunities for new practices that he's working on, and that is in the team manager section of the book. And there's also additional ones in leveraging both requests to his direct reports as well as managing up to with his manager. That's in the director or functional lead part of the stage of the book, as well as in the team lead section. So as you can see, this is not a career path that's straightforward. It is a matrix. So there's a little bit of navigation. Do you want to add something?
Yeah. So as you can see, for Paul, although he is in the position of a data science manager, he still has some gaps in his skills that is typical in the tech lead, but he also has some strengths already in the various levels. So for Paul, or for you, as you're reading the book or evaluating yourself on where are your strengths and opportunities, you may find strengths that you have that are in various levels, and that's good. That means that you already have strengths to pave the way for your career growth. And at the same time, when you notice certain opportunities for development, then you can work with the team to be able to fill that in, right? So it doesn't have to be you that has all the skills and the expert in some of these skill sets, but you can actually leverage your team to fill those gaps.
So let's take a look at the questions that might have come in while we were speaking. And we have a question that's, so there's an audience member who said this person got bored for data science and moved back to software engineering. And the challenge is companies don't know what to do with data science. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yes, actually, I've seen many of these cases, and this is a very common case for companies who love the idea of data science, but didn't do enough homework before starting a data science team. So what tends to be missing is that there wasn't someone with the capabilities of a function director that can craft these technology roadmaps and be able to work with business partners to find those champions and sponsors for important business problems before a data science project is launched. So many efforts are wasted to work on projects that may not have a powerful business outcome. So I think it's unfortunate to have those kind of situations, but I would encourage coding on steroid. Encourage you to look for those opportunities if you have the passion in data science. And there are companies out there that has a sharp vision of how they're going to be leveraging data science. And I think you can have a very fulfilling career in data science.
So there was another question that came in through another channel. It says, I'm an individual contributor. How do you recommend that I use this book?
Yes. So when we talk about becoming a leader in data science, it's not just about managing people. There's also a technical leadership growth path. And what you can find is in many of the uh, stages of career development, especially in the technology and domain expert areas, there are lots of opportunities to accumulate knowledge and capabilities to be able to have great technical impact as an individual contributor. So, for example, you can focus on crafting technology roadmaps and uh, helping the company understand when to build the right thing for the right people at the right time, as well as anticipating business needs across multiple stages of product development cycle, or driving fundamental impact with deep domain understanding. Those are all things that an individual contributor can help a company accomplish.
In fact, I have had conversations with former colleagues who say that they love data science, but um, they're happy with doing uh, leading the technology. But even at that position, they are always looking at how do they find value for for the for the company and for the enterprise. So I have one more question, and if there's more questions out there, please send them in. Um, so, what are you looking for the most in promoting somebody to manage a data science team?
Mm. So, in terms of the areas I'm looking at, the book actually highlights a lot of these different areas, and it's actually listed out in the different stages of the career development process. Now, one of the things that I look for are actually the strength that people have to be able to fulfill the task at hand. Now, that doesn't mean that they check all the boxes in the tech lead column.
So you're saying they don't have to check. So if they are tech lead, they don't have
Right?
to fill everything that's on the leftmost column.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
That's correct. So they don't have to check all the boxes on the on one of the column to be able to be promoted to the next or to be promoted to the next stage. But what they do need to do is to be able to show that they have strength in some areas and that they understand what are the developmental opportunities they have in their career and that they have a clear path in uh, going there. So in this particular case, if a tech lead, for example, has demonstrated capabilities and virtues in some topics and potential in others, uh, he or she could be ready for more responsibilities in people management.
excellent. We're at the top of the hour. Thank you, Dr. Chong, for explaining the case of Paul, the new data science manager, in detail. And our book, Become a Leader in Data Science, is available on MEEP, Manning's Early Access Program. And on the slide, you can see a code to get you a very good deal for the book. Thank you all for tuning in, and happy Diwali for everybody who celebrates it, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.